I got really mixed emotions today. On the one hand, it was great to see so many people honouring their loved ones, partners, parents, siblings, family members, friends and work colleagues. But perhaps like many of us, I got a lot of sadness, regret, bitterness and anger. Firstly, because of the so many senseless and completely unnecessary and entirely avoidable and preventable workplace fatalities. And secondly, because in 2018 it still appears that some employers accept fatalities as a cost of doing business. Some employers still play a game of probability with the lives of workers. Well, workers do not go to work to have other people play a game of probability with their lives. Many employers continue to play this game of probability with workers' lives in the knowledge that in real terms, if it all goes horribly wrong and workers are killed, at worst, they, the employer, will only be inflicted with a financial penalty. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because right now, with the focus on the Banking Royal Commission, it appears politicians, the media, and the public have no problems or issues with so-called white-collar financial crimes attracting prison sentences to those deemed and found responsible. But the same can't be said for workplace fatalities, fatalities that predominantly affect the blue-collar workforce. I often wonder what the difference is or where the disparity lays. We made that very clear to the Minister about 10 minutes ago. Now, even with the heaviest of fines in terms of OHS and workplace fatalities, and that very rarely occurs, what does it really mean or do to a company or an organisation? It's said that the primary purpose of OH&S prosecution is deterrence, which is premised on the notion that punishment will discourage the individual or corporate wrongdoer. Deterrence is based on the idea that criminal punishments can be used to outweigh the calculated benefits occurring to those individuals or business organisations who consider committing a crime. But financial penalties fail that notion, and they fail it miserably. Why? Because fines do not ensure that offenders restructure their workplace to comply with OH&S standards. Fines only have an impact upon the financial returns of the corporation and not on the motivation and/or behaviour of the responsible managers. Fines do not ensure any disciplinary action is ever taken against those who should be held responsible and accountable, especially if the hazards and risks were previously known. Fines do not require management to review their systems of work or operation so that the offence will not reoccur. And fines are easily avoided by restructuring the corporate structures or entities or by moving the organisation assets to other corporate entities. And somewhat insidiously, and we heard Luke say, some companies even insure against fines. If law is a reflection of society's values, then criminal sanctions have both a moral and a symbolic role to play. And symbolism is important. It's argued that symbolic or moral aims of criminal sanctions seek to apportion moral blame for criminal acts and officially demonstrate society's intolerance of harmful behaviour. We use the criminal law when our sensibilities are assaulted, when, in addition to addressing the particular problem, we want both to condemn the wrongdoer's conduct and to stigmatise them. The criminal law both reflects existing public sentiments about the heinousness of certain activities, but it can also be used to shape such perceptions, particularly if used in conjunction with media campaigns showing the reprehensible aspects of that behaviour while simultaneously emphasising society's condemnation of that behaviour. And that's why we must have industrial manslaughter legislation. Corporations and employers must not be allowed to continue the game of probability with workers' lives with only a monetary sanction as their penalty. Now, the obvious questions that those in Parliament may ask is, will such legislation work? Whilst there's currently little empirical evidence to determine just how effective or otherwise industrial manslaughter legislation has been where it has been introduced, or indeed to come to any type of robust or unquestionable judgment over the value of that legislation in terms of reducing accidents, or incidents I should say, and fatalities at the workplace, it is acknowledged that there are a number of direct effects that such legislation has, including that the threat of prosecution generally leads to thoughts of self-protection in that it keeps a manager's mind firmly fixed on safety. The threat of prosecution generally encourages and dictates that managers be more vigilant with their documentation, including writing things down, and that the threat of prosecution will generally make managers ensure that all employees and sub-managers implement and abide by the agreed rules and procedures. It is argued that regulation and personal liability, reinforced by credible enforcement, is perhaps the single most important motivator for a CEO in relation to their responsibility in ensuring high-level OHS standards are both implemented and maintained at their organisation's workplace. Many academics also believe that deterrent is bolstered if there is a likelihood of attracting a prison sentence in the event of a finding of guilt. After all, imprisonment is a far greater deterrent than non-imprisonment. I hope that we can take at least some of these sentiments away with us today, and that we all begin the process of both drafting and introducing industrial manslaughter legislation in this state for the sake of all Victorian workers and their families. Thank you.